This is Graham from Knight's Writing Company, and in today's short video I'm going to tell you all about cartridges and converters. You may be new to fountain pens and wonder, should you use converters, should you use cartridges, what's proprietary fitting, what's standard international fitting. I'm going to take you through all of that in this video. So let's first of all talk about the most common type of cartridge and converter, and that is the international cartridge and converter fitting. And I would estimate most modern fountain pens use the international standard, but that certainly isn't necessarily the case. And in fact, in the next segment, we're going to talk about proprietary fittings. Now, you may have heard of proprietary fittings versus international standard, and what does that actually mean? Well, proprietary fitting means that the cartridge or converter is specifically for that pen or for that brand of pen and won't fit any other. So just to give you an example of what a proprietary cartridge looks like, we have a pilot cartridge here. Standard size for a pilot, but what you will notice here is that the mouth of the cartridge is extremely wide. We have two international cartridges here. One is a long cartridge, which used to be fairly common. Now it's fairly uncommon. This is actually from a Waterman fountain pen here, the Expert 3, and we have the more popular short international cartridge here, obviously shorter with less ink. What you can see though is that they're both the pilot, the proprietary fitting, and the international cartridge fitting are really quite different. Okay, so that's one thing you have to make sure when you're purchasing a pen is which one are you using. So I'm going to put this proprietary fitting pilot one somewhere to the side here so it doesn't roll around too much. Okay, let's talk about the international sizes here. This, as I said, this is a long cartridge. This is a small cartridge. And you could be looking at a small cartridge thinking, well, I really don't get much ink in there. And that's true. But, even given writing over, several days, couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, it's probably enough. It really depends how much you write. But what you got to remember is this shorter, but if you sort of add two of these together, it turns into one long cartridge. You can actually fit two of these into your fountain pen and carry one around as a spare. Most fountain pens are of the right size that you can do that. For example, a Diplomat, I think you can do that. The Conklin and the Expert 3. Something like this, the Koiko Sport, you can't do that. You can only carry one cartridge in it, and that's the cartridge that you're currently using. So generally, cartridges do come in limited colors with many of the manufacturers, but if you're using an international fitting, it kind of gives you a wide array of what manufacturers' cartridges you can use. For example, this is a Monteverdi Mandarin Orange. This is a Koiko, also coincidentally an orange, and we've got a J. Harbin Sapphire Blue here. Each of these three are from completely different manufacturers, and we've got the Waterman here, but because they're all international standard, they would fit in a pen that uses an international standard fitting. I want to show you one of my favorite pens, and this one's really interesting, is the Koiko Sport. And what you'll notice first off is it's pretty small compared to a standard size Diplomat or a Conklin or a Waterman. And so, you'll really notice that this pen can't use a long international standard cartridge. It's going to be a really tight fit, and in fact I don't think it's even going to work. I'm just going to put this over there, so stop that rolling around. Okay, what you can use in this pen is a small cartridge that will fit, and also Koiko have a couple of converters for the Sport specifically. We have the squeeze converter here, which is a sack which you squeeze to fill the pen. Now, this takes a little bit of practice, to be fair. Once you get pretty adept at it, however, you'll be able to fill this sack up fully, okay? So that's a lower cost option for the Koiko. The other one is the Piston Converter here, and this works like a plunger. So once it's inserted into the pen, okay, you would insert it into the feed there. Once it's inserted into the pen and you're filling it up, you just plunge and it will become full of ink. and you can use that in lieu of a cartridge if you want to, giving you options for bottled ink. What else do we have here? Conklin, that's a pretty interesting one. Some fountain pens actually have converters built in, and the Conklin's an example of this one. It does take cartridges, but you're going to yank on this and you're going to wonder, why is that not coming out? Something to be aware of. Some of these fittings are actually screw converters, okay? So Conklin's one of those, and you actually have to unscrew counterclockwise this converter to get it out. Now I could use this converter because I think it's going to fit, but you know, use a Conklin one, why not? What I really like about the Conklin is that there's no chance of this converter falling out. You're not going to have any mishaps, but do be mindful. Whatever pen you buy, whether it uses a screw fitting or it's just a friction push-in fitting, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a friction fitting. Occasionally you will find these screw fittings here. Now, to actually fill a pen with a converter, just told you what to do with the Koiko. You would put the nib and feed section into a bottle, okay? Plunge down, twist, plunge up. Again, you got a little bit of practice there to make sure that everything's properly submerged. But these work really well if you like to use bottled ink. The other thing you can do, just to let you know, and this is one of the ways that I prefer to sometimes fill a converter, is I don't want to get my my nice diplomat nib all messy. I just want to keep that supreme and pristine. Sometimes I will actually fill the converter directly into the bottle, plunge that back, give it a clean, pop it onto the end of the pen, and just let a little bit of ink out so that the capillary action of the feed actually takes and the nib actually takes, and you can start to write without getting the nib of the pen messy. So I think that pretty much covers international standard cartridges and converters. Let's take a look at the proprietary ones now. So on my writing desk right now I have a number of fountain pens that don't use international standard cartridges, and I just wanted to make you aware that it's possible when you're purchasing a pen from any store, us included, that you may get a pen that doesn't use international standard cartridges, in which case you have to use their proprietary converters or cartridges. The cartridges usually are limited in color. So you may prefer to go with bottled ink if you want a variety of colors. So on my left here we have Parker. Now Parker fountain pens are absolutely wonderful, really excellent writers and really good pens to use, and they're extremely reliable. But they do use a proprietary Parker fitting. As you can see, the cartridge here is quite different from the international standard cartridge that we showed before. It's got this kind of wider nozzle that fits on the feed of the Parker, and the thinner international standard won't fit at all. From Japan we have the Platinum. Again, it's got this wider mouth on the converter and also the cartridge. The cartridge is pretty interesting actually. They have this kind of a metal ball inside of them. I almost feel it's bad for the environment to use those, but they're good cartridges nonetheless. What else do we have here? Lamy, German company Lamy, as of the Safari, etc. We have a studio here. They use their own cartridges and converters too, and I got the Pilot Metropolitan down here. You can see that's really, just angle out there, that's a really interesting cartridge, super wide, and in fact I think if I just crack open a Metropolitan here, you'll see that it also comes with a converter, which is a sack. It's a squeeze converter, if you will. You press this lever here once you put the nib inside the bottle to fill, and it takes a little bit of practice, but you can get a whole filling with this. Now, interestingly enough, I have another pen that's similar to the Metropolitan. By the way, you can take the converter out and replace it with the cartridge. I have a Conklin Crescent Filler here. Now this pen has an interesting mechanism whereby, hi Sammy, Sammy's come to see me if you can hear the dog prints on the floor there. This Crescent Filler has an interesting mechanism that's currently locked. If I turn this little circle here, and it has a gap in it, I can actually engage the filling mechanism by pressing down here. I don't know if you can see that, the crescent. And that's very similar to the Metropolitan. It's just you got this lever that's actually pushing down the sack inside the pen. Once it's full, you can lock that and you're good to go. You won't have any mishaps unless the lock comes undone. And some of the pens, such as a TWSBI, of course, don't have cartridges or converters exactly. Instead, they have a piston which is controlled by the top of the pen here. When you're filling it and you submerge the nib, you simply twist the top of the pen to push the piston down and twist the top of the pen the other way to pull the piston back, and lo and behold, it will fill with ink. I guess, you know, the Crescent Filler, this guy, and also Metropolitan take a little bit of practice to use, but, you know, after a little while, you'll become pretty adept at it. So that's just an example of non-international standard cartridges and converters and pens. Keep an eye out when you're buying them, look at the descriptions, and make sure you know what you're getting. Thanks for watching the video. Please remember to hit the subscribe button below and find us at knightswriting.ca.